say something to you guys and the whole committee. I just saw online that today is the anniversary of the first ever attempt at making snow. Artificial snowmaking. Some guy in Massachusetts went up in a plane and seeded a cloud with dry ice to try and make it snow. And I guess they succeeded.
What year? 100 years ago?
1946.
Oh, my God.
No, actually, I read somewhere that, well, that may be commercial, well, that one of the original snowmaking machines was actually in Hollywood, where they made ice chips and used it as snow. Yeah.
So I just saw that online
That's funny.
Okay.
actually a few minutes ago, so.
All right, fine. Do we have any minutes from the last meeting?
Yep, I emailed them, I mean, they were emailed to you October,
Yeah. When?
on the 12th of October.
Back like the day after
Oh,
the
man,
meeting.
I really missed that.
I got them and I wasn't
I
at the
missed
meeting.
that. Does anybody have a copy?
I think for what we remember at one of these last meetings, Holly is taking, the minutes will be attendance of
Yep,
who attended
right.
the meeting, and if we voted on anything and what that was, any
Right,
action items.
Any action items.
So-
And if there is anything that I or someone else of the committee feels they want in the minutes, but it's really not an action item.
So stated.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
And
okay,
Otherwise, it'll
fine.
be just the recorded.
Okay, right, the recorded minutes. So,
so I guess you just want to table that till you can bring those back up?
man, yeah, I gotta look
You
for
need to
it.
move that closer to you.
All right.
It won't pick you up if you.
Okay. Sorry, Holly, I missed that. Okay, fine.
Okay, it's not like I always send them the day after, so it's,
Did you send this agenda out by email?
Yep.
Yeah.
I was still on the list, I hope?
You are.
Oh, okay, okay.
I got it like
Well,
Monday
like you,
night
I
or
just
something.
missed that.
I got it, I got it.
I probably got it.
Everybody else, I think, got it, so.
I probably
The
got
thing is,
it.
before we finish, make sure that, give me your
Okay,
copy of
I'll
your
double check
email
it.
address again, okay?
Okay,
I think it came out about 11:30 Monday night or something.
oh, okay, I might have missed it.
Sunday
Yeah,
night.
Okay, anyways, snowball operations. Beth, can you just give us an update on the early bird sales and also what the schedule looks like coming up?
So, we have already overreached our season pass revenue by $11,000 with just the early bird sales. So, I sent you out the year-to-date on the
Just
expenses.
for the record, what was the number?
We were shooting for $258,000, and we've brought in 269 so far. And there are a handful of people that wait to see if we can get snow and how early we can open and what part of the mountains are open.
There will be
We will
more.
have regular prices.
Did the lack of power for those 2 or 3 days?
Oh, my God.
I know it
We
messed
are
things up,
cursed.
but did that actually maybe help because of all of the announcements of get it in, we're staying another extra day or two?
It's hard to say.
we were only without power on Friday, to be honest. So we lost power on Friday, we didn't have phones
The whole week.
the whole week.
All right.
So,
This is 3 years in a row. Remember, we had that
The end of
huge
October.
snowstorm and we lost power. We had to come down here and try
That
to
was
sell
2 years
passes.
ago, I think.
yep,
Last year was another
power outage.
and ripped the awning to, all to heck.
Mm-hmm.
And then this year was this again. So
Was it twice this year or once?
we lost
Two
power
storms.
twice this year, but
Yeah,
just the phone was the major issue this year.
Right.
It was interesting that on the, leading up to the 31st, every day was about $5,000 or $6,000. Then the 30th was a $14,000 day, and then the 31st was a $34,000 day.
Everyone
Online sales only.
procrastinates. And then we have a power outage or no phone line and
Account
it's,
for
you
all
know,
the-
it's our fault.
All the
And
bad
then
ones and-
we extended it,
Yep.
which allowed more people to get the deal that might not have
That's fair.
figured it out.
That's fair.
Chairlift rides, we also hit budget. We had budgeted $18,000 for summer chairlift, and we hit 19. We did lose a Sunday. That last Sunday was rainy and cruddy, so still very
Did you
pleased
just
with
not
that.
do it that day, or did it just
We
fizzle?
We chose not to do it. Just wouldn't have had the people coming
Right.
out, so. For schedule updates,
When are we looking for?
CMP reads our meter on the 28th of November, so the 29th, if it's cold, we will turn everything on.
28th is a Friday.
Is it a Friday?
I'm not sure. No, it's not.
Yes, Friday. The 29th is a Friday.
It's their read date that they say they read it, so.
No,
They're not going to read it on the 28th, that's Thanksgiving.
28th is Thanksgiving, that's what I was going to say.
All right.
30th is a Saturday.
Unless that's an electronic read that
It must-
doesn't,
I
the
don't know.
computer reads it.
So, yeah, so that's something to look at anyways.
Now, if you start making snow before that electric date, is it more expensive, less
Yes.
expensive?
So
Okay.
we get hit with a demand charge because we have three-phase power. The second we even just ask for tiny, tiny click of that demand, we get charged
Oh, 3,000, I think, isn't it?
3 to 6
So push that.
each month.
Each month. So don't start making it until the weather is right and that holds that fee off? Okay.
So what's that date that you can start making it without that fee?
I thought it was November 28th is their read date.
Oh, okay.
So you,
Okay.
in that essence, the 29th would be considered the next month, right?
Yeah.
I have a question. I missed the last meeting. What is the policy about the free days this year for
The
skiing?
board has not
Nothing's
approved
changed.
or
Or none-
even discussed it yet.
No, they haven't.
So nothing's been
No,
announced?
nothing's been announced.
Was there a policy of this committee? Did we recommend something, one way or the other? No.
We've talked about it.
We
We have no way of measuring how it's going to affect because a lot of people had already bought their passes before the select board decided to do this last year. Now, we're getting
Same thing this
late
year.
again, so I would assume they're gonna wanna talk about it at one of the next December
Very
meetings.
soon,
Because the employees, also, there's
right.
the discount for employees we need to discuss. And then the fee schedule is in
When's you plan
January
on bringing that in the 3rd?
3rd.
I think that the general discussion that this committee had after it was announced by, or the decision was made by the select board, we had no advance notice of that, and from Beth and Holly's perspective, is basically, let's see what the effect of that is, if it does have an effect on sales.
Sure.
If it's used a lot,
Sure.
let's get some data and see if it's something that, hey, it's a good idea, let's continue it, but if it's something that's satisfying 2 or 3 people, it's like, why?
Right, but in order to determine that, we have to keep doing it for a little while as a trial, I would assume.
Well,
How
the
do you-
trial
else would
was,
you
the
determine?
trial was this past year, and it's going to have to be for this year,
It was February.
this coming
March.
season.
It was February, March.
Right,
Yeah, February,
so
March.
I mean, from my
Yeah.
perspective, I hope you continue it, because I think it does get new people involved.
I think it's a good idea. I don't think it should be every Wednesday of the ski season, though. I mean, which last year they decided to do every whatever day it was for the rest of the year. And I think
Yeah.
it's a good idea to do it, but not for every single one.
Okay.
I think that's, okay.
The
That's,
select board will probably make the decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
Should be the 3rd.
Yeah.
But the input should be, if there's any data from last year, absolutely need to take a look at that.
Yeah, I think off memory, it was like 108 people
That's right, it was,
came in and got tickets. It wasn't huge.
A lot of people they'd already bought their season passes, so it was kind of a.
like this year,
right, okay. Well-
69,000 already,
I
so.
do have data on what the impact is on
Good.
employee purchases too.
Right.
Paid versus what it would have been.
Yeah, I'm kind of a
I
tendency, I
get-
think the select board, in my opinion, would always lean toward, employee, have that, go. for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to know the number though, too.
Oh,
So that's
sure,
why, but I do
absolutely.
have that, so in case anyone wants it.
Any data you have on anything helps, I know you don't have
Jeff.
anything, but.
Do you want to also mention the uphill policy, so it's on the record?
Can I just interject one thing, though, first? If you do have a notice from the select board that that's going to be brought up at a select board meeting, can you just, on the free Wednesdays, can you just notify me or everybody on the committee that this is going to be discussed by the select board.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, that'd be good, because if any member of this committee wants to come as just a member of the community, not reflect the committee's decision, but come and make a statement.
You're absolutely right, Ray. Anybody can come as a resident to say anything they want, but from the committee perspective, we only hear from the chair. After you've had deliberation by the
After
committee.
you
But
had some
anybody,
deliberations.
resident,
Right.
all of the residents,
right.
please,
Yeah.
come to the select board, it's fine.
Right, but if you could let us know
Oh,
that it's on the
absolutely.
agenda.
Well, you can probably plan on December 3rd.
Right,
December 3rd.
yeah, okay. All right.
Do you want to mention?
I don't
that?
have it, so I can't,
What was this?
Okay.
can't talk about it.
Well, we had a meeting of a variety of people at the Snow Bowl and to talk about the uphill policy, AT skiers and
Oh.
the like. So we developed a uphill policy. And one of the things would be good to note is that beginning November 29th until opening day, there'll be no public access to the Alpine trails. So people can come to the Snow Bowl and, but they can't be up on the Alpine trails because of snowmaking efforts. We plan to make sure that the gate is closed dusk to dawn so that we don't have people coming in after dark when the groomers are out doing stuff and all that. And then beginning on opening day, which we are considering the in-season, on non-operating hours, well, I don't go too into the weeds of it, but we're going to use a flag system on the outside of the building, a red or a green, and just because we figured that's a really easy thing for people to see as they pull in that are, thinking about coming over to do that kind of activity. So we're going to have a red or a green flag hanging outside the building on the days designating that the Alpine trails are closed to all users or open to all users at their own risk. And then we've also moved, we were able to purchase a new television screen monitor for the lodge. We took the old one and put it downstairs in the window of patrol, and we're going to, we've developed sort of what the flags will look like on the screen, and so when you pull up, you'll be able to see in the window. So anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, people can come and look at that. And then that will be changed regularly as needed.
It'll have our full ski report on it as well.
Yeah,
Will that be announced on the website or somehow, just so people kind of?
yeah.
I believe the policy's up on the website.
Yeah,
isn't
policy's
it?
up there, yeah.
Yeah, and most of the upscale skiers are ones who would be looking at that site anyways.
Well, I think we have a safety page now on our site,
Okay.
so it has all the safety
All right,
information.
so they'll know about it, okay.
The
good.
uphill, a lot of the uphill community is aware that we were talking about putting together policy because it was just sort of, it had gone wild and it was getting really dangerous. So they're aware of it, that it was coming.
Okay.
So, but we do need to promote that a little bit more, maybe get something out in the papers too so that people know, because it is a growing activity and
yeah.
there is more and more AT equipment being sold, around here, so.
Have you ever had a case of somebody, assuming you had a red flag up on verbally in the past, that actually has gone past the gate on their own?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I've
this
pulled
is-
people off the mountain when there's a groomer behind them.
This is a major, major issue. It's not only the folks that are ATing up the mountain that are in danger, it's our employees that fear. We almost saw a dog get tilled up last year. I mean, it was, inches of getting tilled in the groomer. And,
Oh, geez.
we have
They were all
to,
sitting there before hours in a manager's meeting.
we have
watching it out
to,
the
we
window.
have to take this seriously. If people start coming out when we have the red flag up, we've got to call the police and get them for trespassing.
Okay,
Because
okay.
my employees a lot of them are just so scared to death, they're going to run somebody over.
Well, I mean, I asked the question because I agree, but I think you should also have that on the website, say, violators are going to be.
We've got that in the policy.
Because they need to understand that the police can come
And
and
then,
get you
and then also during the in-season, we've designated 3 trails for them to stay on so that everybody knows where they're going to be.
course.
The downhillers know that that's, to expect people there. for an additional safety measure, because it's not only the employees, but it's the downhill skiers.
Absolutely.
During the daytime.
Oh, absolutely.
So during the regular hours.
That's great.
So
Fine.
we'll test it out and see what we have to tweak.
Trying to appease everyone.
Yep,
Can't do that.
good. All right. Jeff, you want to update us anything on pathways?
Well, I think Beth can do that.
It's,
So we wrapped up the Riverwalk trail that was over by Knowlton Street. Given the fact that it was due in the end of December and given that we're going to be going into operations, we just said, let's be finished, wrap it up, and if we want to go for another grant in the future, we can.
So what does that mean, wrap it up? End it before it was supposed
Well,
to
there was,
end, or?
this has been one of those amoeba-type projects where we wanted to do it this way, it changed and morphed into this. Then we wanted to have, a spur or lead it out onto wastewater and find a way up to Lions Lane. That now cannot happen because of a big transformer that's going in at wastewater, and it would be right in the way of where we would want to put the trail. So we just, this project specifically has had lots of change orders from the beginning.
So there's a lack of clarity right now, basically, is that what you're saying?
Well, right now it's a trail to nowhere.
Yeah.
It literally
right,
goes
yeah.
to the fence at
Yeah, I walked
wastewater.
it, yeah, it's kind of weird.
So
It's
we've got
not
to
that close to
figure
the
out
river.
what we want to, how we want that to look. Right now, there are ways for the public to get out up to Lions Lane in between the Lions Club and the bus parking. There is a given route that's obvious. It's not, our stone dust trail, but it is a way up. So.
Okay.
So, I'd add a couple more things to that. One is, I wouldn't agree that it's a pathway to nowhere, a riverwalk to nowhere. I wouldn't.
Well,
use
currently
those-
it is,
I
Jeff.
wouldn't use those words because it means it's a boondoggle and nobody thought it
Yeah,
through.
right.
And the Riverwalk has a
Yes,
master plan,
you're-
and we build sections as we can. And
It's a
so
work
this
in
is another
process.
section that was built, but the next section is not built yet. And when the next section gets built, it'll go further, so.
work in process.
It's a work in process. So that's the only thing I would tweak. Also, there's, the only other thing, sort of big picture, is that there's a couple of Pathways members that are putting together a summit on sort of connections. And that would be in January. I'll update you on that. But the goal is to get different groups, organizations that are working on connections for pedestrians and bikes in the same room to share what that work is, so that everybody knows what everybody else is doing. And that would be like McNemba, which is the mountain bike guys, and Pathways, and Maine Coast Heritage Trust, and Coastal Mountains Land Trust. It's all those different energies, and sort of get a big picture. But I'll let you guys know if you want to have somebody, I don't know, would you want someone from Parks and Rec or
I think we should be, yeah.
to know what's going on with that? All right, no date yet, but it would be in January.
Route 1, is that still going to happen, that?
Which one?
The one,
Which piece?
well, I thought it was the piece going to Camden Hills. Is that the piece that's been
Piece-
into discussion?
There are two pieces that are in discussion, not discussion, in action.
Okay.
One is downtown, from Stop and Go to, the Sea Dog landing access there. They're redoing the drainage on one side of the road. That's proposed for the spring of 2020, next year. It's principally a drainage project.
Okay.
The other one is a mile and a half from the Camden State Hills Park to the Lincolnville line.
Right, my question is a bike path planned or a bike lane planned as part of that?
There are considerations the only consideration is 2 5-foot shoulders paved.
Uh-huh. But none of this has been finalized yet?
Oh,
still?
yeah.
Oh, it is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there's going to be,
It basically, it's the same road you have, adding two, as far as width-wise goes, forget the drainage stuff, there's 2 5-foot lanes, one on each side.
and when's it scheduled to actually happen?
They're going through the process of meeting with all the homeowners as we speak. I suspect they'll bid it in the spring. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Toboggan Committee, Beth and I are both on, Holly and I are both on, excuse me, Holly and I are both on that. Holly's, I don't know if you want to update everybody on that, or I can.
Not much to update.
Right.
We've made some rules, adjustments, clarifications, and registration is open. I'm about ready to close parking sales till I make sure that I've got enough spaces for the people that have already bought them, and may reopen it again if if I've got extra spaces. And
Dates?
7th, 8th, and 9th of February. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's the weekend after Super Bowl, which is on the 1st.
Good idea.
So, yeah, everything's just sort of going
Yeah,
along.
one new thing is that, believe that Cedar Works has
yeah.
agreed to bring over one of their playground.
It's
Is that sort of like a boat,
It's like a pirate ship or.
pirate ship,
Cool.
and place it there at the designated area of the Snow Bowl for kids to play on?
Okay.
Toboggan weekend. So we've been talking a lot about.
On the ice, or?
It'll
No,
probably
we
be
won't.
Probably pump house where we can't park people.
the flat area with the pump house, or, yeah.
Talking about getting something for kids to do to keep them
Yeah.
busy.
Last year, we made like a little hill for the
Put it
kids
in the
there,
tent.
and they used that too, so that'd be, a good kids area.
I guess they brought it to the Lobster Fest this summer, and then I'm getting them to bring it to the Windjammer Festival
Right.
as well.
Yeah. Okay.
We could always use help in town on the weekend of Toboggan Nationals with either selling bus
Right.
tickets or riding the bus, or
Yeah.
maybe even opening this up for a warming place. We've done that in the past as well.
This is not toboggan related, but it is something that I'm running, is the parade for Christmas by the Sea, since we're not going to meet likely before that happens, which is December 5th or 6th, Friday.
Right.
So that's the piece of the weekend that the town takes care of, is the parade, organizing that and staging it. And so I'm in the process of taking float applications from people. So businesses, organizations, just families or neighborhoods that want to do it, put together a float.
Oh, I see.
And
December 6th.
December
is.
6th.
Yeah.
And
That
the
Friday.
application is on Facebook, and they can call it the Snowball, and I can email them an application. And the parade's been really great the last couple
yeah.
of years, so really hoping we get even more this year. So.
Yeah.
Good. All right, fine. I know both Beth and Mark were there and also Jeff for the select board work plan presentation, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to go through a couple of things that we talked about, or I talked about in session, but I'm going to skip around here a little bit since Jeff's here on the disc golf. I think some members of the board were surprised and excited about the prospect of doing this. And I think going forward now, I assume with the ski season coming up, that's being, quote, dismantled for the winter.
I have everything in line to go get the whole course down on Friday.
Right, okay, fine. But I think then it becomes planning for next year
Sorry.
as to what this committee needs to do and what the Parks and Rec Department needs to do to get approval for having this as a offered
Activity.
activity at the Snow Bowl. Because I think we've invested a lot of our time in this. You've invested tremendous amount of time in this, and I'd hate to see it just be put off.
Right.
So, I don't know what the regulations are for the Parks and Rec Department, if you can just go ahead and do this, or if it's got to come up for select board approval.
I don't believe,
I think when we, A, need to spend money, or B, bring in money, we have to go to the board.
Okay.
currently, we're not doing either.
I've already been in touch with my financial advisor, and we're starting to put together a plan to come up with enough money for 18 holes next year.
Wow.
We don't get, unless it affects, for example, let's say Beth said, oh, we need to add, exaggerating, we need to add a person, to do this, that's a budget change. So yes. And the revenue side, yeah, how that works operationally is a separate contract with some entity to run this completely, and that any contract has to go through the select board.
Right, which I
But
think-
as far as the approval of doing the disc golf itself, probably not.
No, but I think that the idea here, correct me if I'm wrong, the idea is that Jeff is going to be running that. There's going to be charges for people to participate, and if the funding, if there is some payment share, whatever goes to the Parks and Rec Department, that all is going to have to go, or somehow be arranged, the arrangement will have to go to the select board.
There would have to be some kind of agreement between whatever entity is doing this.
Right.
It's with the understanding of whatever like you said, maybe it's revenue, maybe it's insurance, maybe it's whatever. The town has certain restrictions it has to be careful with.
But then also.
Roger can help
Yeah,
Beth with that.
but I think, that's an idea, it's sort of like having a vendor there.
Exactly.
Selling
Exactly.
You're
Exactly.
selling discs.
Any activity on town property has to make sure we cover the bases, that's all.
Yeah. I think also, the other thing is, do you have an idea, in your mind of what goes into the ski season, what would be a nice start date for disc golf to get started out there?
Well, it would be into May. It's really wet with all the snow and, the runoff.
Right.
Definitely.
Okay.
According to Mother Nature.
Are you going to be marketing it yourself, or are you hoping
You already
the
have.
town will market it? Do you have any ideas for additional marketing of it?
Doing advertising.
Advertising.
I do have a graphic arts designer. He's the one that designed our posters that were handed out this
Right.
summer. And started out, and he wants to stay on board with it. So there will be marketing, and I would probably take care of most of that myself.
So you don't foresee a budget needed to promote it? Yeah.
Like I said, I'm in touch with my financial advisor, and we are trying to come up with ways to raise the money by spring, so that once the weather does clear up, we have the funds in place, and we can just start going from there.
So,
We'll need to work on a plan for that this winter, as well as any contract that we need to put together this winter.
Right.
so.
right. But I think I look at it as being sort of almost like a supplier or a group like Side Country Sports, where they're at the facility, but they are doing all of their own marketing, they're doing their staffing or whatever for it.
Yep.
And in that case, they're paying a fee to the town of Camden also. So that can all be worked out. Good. All right. Couple of things that I talked about at that and sort of highlighted 4 areas during that presentation. One was on signage. I think the reception from the select board and everything was very good about that, but do we need to meet with the sign committee, I believe? or
That was a
somebody?
suggestion the board
Yeah.
wanted us to, there is a committee that works on signage for the whole town.
Yeah. It's still a live committee?
I don't know, I'm not aware of any.
We can
I-
check
not-
with Jeannie. Jeannie
Yeah,
would
please,
know.
yeah, I just, it probably is. I'm just not cognizant.
I think
of it.
Audra said it was Deb Dodge, maybe the one who's on
Oh,
that.
no, it's design committee.
Downtown design.
Design committee.
Design committee. They met here just last night at 4 o'clock. Yeah, I would coordinate with them. They're not a sign
Right.
committee. The reason is because they have been working on some downtown master plan stuff that talks about signage for the town. And
Well, this would be town signage. in a
agreed,
way.
but
And
it's,
some of the parks are in town.
correct, but it's, their focus is more on parking this way, this way to the whatever. So, but it's, I think it's more of a, just FYI.
Okay. All right, fine.
Dodge. It is Deb Dodge.
Okay. And I think, Holly, as far as signs go, we should, I don't know, do you have a priority, or you and Beth
I
have
have a priority list
list
that
of
that Tom has
ones
given me.
of which to go in and everything like that? Okay, good, good. And reservation fees?
Yep, that will be, when I do my fee schedule in January, that will be included on that fee schedule at the
Right.
board
Right,
level.
yep. Yeah, we'll see how that is received. Have you had any other feedback from the different sports leagues on,
Nope, they're all
No.
fine.
they're all fine with that? Okay.
I presume the reservation fees will be on your overall fee
Right.
schedule.
Yes, that's what I just said. Yep.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'll just note for our records and everything.
Yep.
Mark,
Yep.
Mark feels that we're still giving things away.
And I know there were some people that weren't there, so I just brought a copy of the letter that I gave to the selectmen that night. One for everybody on the committee.
I have one already. so-
I know you do. I know Bob does, but you want another one, or?
I'm good.
All right,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
that's just,
20%.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Not that it's on reservation fees, but has the football league moved the stand
No.
yet?
Yes.
Oh, they did?
I think they did.
They did,
I
okay.
sent them an email late
Yeah,
last
that's
week and asked them to take care of that before the weather turns on us, so.
I mean, the issue is those stands got frozen into the ground last year, and it's happened for 2 or 3 years in a row. And,
Yep.
you know, now's the time you move them.
When does their season officially end?
I believe it was the 2nd and 3rd of November where they were like,
Okay, so they were playing up into November.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, fine. And the other of the 4 things that I really tried to highlight, the things that we've been working on, is Lake Beach and some of the improvements there. Any update on the swings?
So the swings, I met with Public Works out there last week, and given that it's mid-November, and digging up a hole and trying to pour concrete in the cold weather and all that, we have delayed it to springtime. It is marked off. Public Works is still going to dig up the old concrete footings from the old set.
Yeah.
And we don't know if those are massive, because none of us were around when they got put in. But they'll dig that up. They will cover it up with wood chips until spring, and then we're going to come back out and mark it and dig it up.
Some stuff sticking out of the ground there right now.
That's the old-
As long as it's safed out, that's fine.
Yep.
I mean, safed out in terms of removing ground up, below the ground, not so big a worry, no liability, but just, like,
So
somebody's,
they're gonna-
it's gonna get covered by snow, and somebody's gonna,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Public Works is going to take care of that for us, and then once snow is out in the spring, we have the swing set. We know what we need to
Do we
order.
physically have it?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's at wastewater in
I'm
boxes.
sorry, this is for Lake Beach?
Lake Beach.
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
So it's being stored at wastewater, and come spring, we will order up everything that we need and get it in.
What about the removal of the swing set at Shirt Tail? Has anything been thought about that, or is it just, it's out of sight, out of mind at this point?
Currently, yes.
Yeah,
There's no swings on it. It's just,
Yeah, there's no
yeah,
swings
yeah.
on it, but it's,
Yeah.
As old as the Lake Beach
it's
ones.
as old as, and it's
Yeah.
completely rusted.
that, I think, when things are done at Lake Beach, that's, at Shirt Tail, that's just an extra thing to be done.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. And talked about priority upgrades, different things that we see as priorities here. And I think, Bob, you mentioned to me it would be very helpful for the select board if we just threw some numbers in there.
well,
But-
it's not so much for the select boards, what was more is for Beth's benefit, really, because, you know, she's gonna have to, that department's gonna have to come up with a budget pretty soon for next year.
Right.
And one of those budget line items is gonna be maintenance, or whatever you
Yeah.
wanna call it. So is that a $10,000 or $100,000 line item? That's gonna hurt a decision with Audra to recommend to budget committee, blah, 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 and eventually the select board. But if there are, you have a long list of stuff.
Right.
And then in the philosophy, still remains, I believe, with the select board, that we're going to fix what we have before we go build new stuff in general. What do you think we need to fix? And yeah, what's I know you don't have a budget estimate. If you think it's 10,000, call it 20,000. If you think it's 25,000, call it 40,000. I mean, just put a number together. So Beth has some ammunition to come up with a number. It may not be approved, I don't know, but, we got to lay it on the table. Because I believe individually that the budget for maintenance of our parks is too low. We're behind the curve, like every town, every city in the country, in infrastructure, including parks. That's sidewalks, streets, drainage, everything. It's not because we don't care, it's just because that's just the way it is. Out of sight, out of mind sometimes, you can't do that.
Yep.
Well, the swing sets are probably a perfect example of that. The swing sets,
they
just
are.
sitting there,
They are.
with no swings on them, being unused. is
They are.
perfect.
The Herculean efforts of Public Works and others to maintain roads, or to parks, the Herculean effort to maintain everything, erosion at Short Tail, et cetera. I'd want to dictate the priorities, but come up with a swag at what you think should be done and about how much it would cost.
Okay, good. And then the last thing, I'm just recounting this for other people, last thing is I went through what, and some things that Beth has suggested as far as additions to our work plan, which obviously will have to be discussed or negotiated with Audra and then the select board. But one of the ones you mentioned was about brown-tail moths. As far as having members of this committee be an extra set of eyes on different locations.
Yeah, probably a good idea to do some inventory stuff.
Yeah, and that's something, I'm not even sure what is the right season or time to do it.
Well, when the leaves are off, you can see where they are at the tips.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can see the cocoons.
yeah.
Has there been any official updates on what they expect for this year from any?
The only thing the Forestry Department of Maine has said is that, just in particular Camden and other jurisdictions, a lot of the cocoons were killed because of the moisture that happened in the summer. So that's a good news thing. Now, what percentage? Hey.
So nobody really knows.
So we're not
what's
going to know
happen.
until these larvae start popping out in the spring.
But everything's still around.
Yep.
It will be for 3 years.
All of the hairs that come off of them of getting into people's wood piles, people out raking leaves.
That's not going to change. That's
Are people still getting outbreaks around town? Yeah?
I'm covered.
Oh, really?
Well, I can't sit still right now.
It's still there. It's going to be there. We can't change that. It's not going
You're
to change.
blowing your leaves.
I'm sorry I laughed.
Yeah, I heard today somebody there was this woman who was bringing in wood for the wood stove, and all the stuff was in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you might be able to do, just to avoid some bureaucracy, is on your priority upgrades or analysis, add monitoring the parks for, Rockport closed down a park because of this.
Right.
Over by
Walker
the
Park. Yeah, they
Yeah,
closed
for a
down
while,
Walker.
for a while.
Right, yeah.
And we may need to do the same thing if somebody's going to tell us that we don't trust what we're seeing. So there probably should be something in the budget for doing a survey, a minimal survey of what we think is happening in in the major parks.
Was Barrett's Cove that was in the area that
We had some,
was that pretty bad last summer?
we didn't close it, but because it's new to us, we did have some citizens call and say that they swim there every day and they've been affected.
We removed dozens of trees at the hospital, and so talk about a budget item, and nobody wanted to do that, but arborists came in and said, that's the cheapest, there's no other way to do it, because of so many people of the public coming in and out, and it actually helped, it clear up a whole lot of things.
Yeah. But I did notice at like Marge Jones Park in Rockport,
Yeah.
as you drive in, they had a big sign saying there could be brown-tailed moth,
Yep.
like
We
caution.
may need to.
So we could do, in our signage plan, we could do some,
Especially for people coming in from out of town that aren't aware of it.
have no idea.
You know?
Right,
Very
and I noticed, so I saw that same type of signage at, forget what the name of the park is up in Belfast, it's near the hospital.
Oh,
the big town park
They had a
there,
sign.
is that on, near every tree there, just about, was talking about the moss, a little sign.
Well, the town eventually may have to come up with a budget, and remember, we only control town property, we can't touch any private property by ordinance, but we can treat, we get the budget for it, to treat certain mega trees. It has to be selective, because, we don't even know which trees it may attack, but if we think there's a mega oak in Shirt Tail that may be considered for the X $100 to inject it, that's the spring consideration it's gonna have to.
There are an awful lot of trees that are on town property that people think are on their property because of the
Perhaps.
roads.
Right.
It is very confusing.
Right. Okay. Anybody have any new business to bring up?
Do you want to say anything about, does anything happen post-workshop with the foundation?
We had the foundation meeting here. I think some of you
Yep.
were there. Weren't you there, Tom?
Which,
The lodge.
The Ragged Mountain
No,
Foundation.
I thought you were there. Well, anyway, I know Jeff was there, I know that, and a few of the others. But anyway, we had a good meeting, was very open and frank discussion, but the next step would really be to get to the town to meet with them again, to talk about the reality of what can happen going forward or not. And it's not black and white, as we discussed. It's a mega expenditure. We're going to need to come up with, at some point, if we do seriously want to consider this a maintenance budget for this property, because that would come out of the town, ad infinitum, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of that stuff we just don't have yet. But yeah, we have to go forward with another discussion, like maybe yesterday, yeah, honestly. But we haven't scheduled that with Bob Gordon and company yet.
Okay.
Tannery,
Yes.
I talked to Jeremy, and maybe I talked to you, I can't remember about it. I guess they're going to be digging they're going to do that testing finally.
Is it next week?
Yeah, it's sometime, yeah, in the middle of
it's next
November,
week.
so it's probably next week.
Because
Yeah,
I always
and
got confused with the following week, but that's Thanksgiving week, they wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
I believe they're mobilizing on don't quote me here,
Yeah.
but I believe they're mobilizing on a Wednesday to mark what's to be done where.
Yeah, and then they're going to
Testing.
actually do some trenching, I guess.
The combination of pits, a trencher to do a segment, as well as borings in selected areas which are designated by our consultant. He will be doing that, I believe, on Wednesday, the 20th. I'm not exactly sure, but I believe on Thursday, and if they need it on Friday. They don't anticipate much more than a day to do the testing.
And I guess then they'll be filling in whatever they
Oh.
pull up right away.
Oh, yeah. No, don't leave any test pits.
Are the test pits all done on where there's ground, or do they go through any of the cement and macadam?
Along the river, I
It's
believe.
all along the river on the other side of the path.
Yeah.
As I believe all
That's
of
where
it.
it's going to be.
All of it, it's, the entire focus is to determine if there's any concern with anything along the river.
So it's all area that actually isn't the tannery, the 2.86 acres. It's not that at all.
Yeah.
It's the river.
It's along the river, it's along the river, its boundaries, I forget who's what's
It's all
not.
along Jeff's Riverwalk. We got to see
which-
how much stuff he put in there.
Yeah.
right?
How much they pull up.
He just drop kicked everything in there.
Wasn't there also a concern about metal and structure and things down in there that had just been pushed over the edge and covered?
And they're testing and analyzing along the riverbank generally.
Yeah, the biggest concern is if there's toxicity, of
Yeah,
course.
right, right, and what it is.
Yeah,
And, yeah, if it is.
right.
So the good news is that should take a few weeks after that to analyze the soils and stuff, and so we should be able to finalize that finally, to go forward.
Good. Okay, fine. Any upcoming events that we should know about?
Just Christmas by the Sea and
Which if people have questions about Christmas by the Sea, Eric Anderson at Lord Camden Inn and Jody, Canada National Bank, Jody.
Yeah, you can't remember her last name. Yeah,
Are sort of the two primary people. We only do the parade, so we don't have any other information
oh, I
about
see,
it.
I see.
All right. Okay,
It's the
fine.
downtown business group that's basically taking it on.
Okay,
Is the
fine.
chamber involved at all?
Maybe a little bit, but I think that the downtown business group is the one that's,
Yeah, it's
for the area business group.
Okay.
Our next meeting will be, does somebody have a calendar?
December 11th.
December 11th.
I got one other quick
Wednesday?
question.
Yeah.
Does anybody know, maybe I missed the discussion of this, why the town 250th anniversary wasn't celebrated?
Because there's a debate of what is 250th anniversary of what. There's a big, always a raging debate about, what do they call it? What's the, I want to get the two terms right. When the town was actually formulated versus when it was established. They're two different dates. So
okay.
1769 was when the town, well, I'm going to get this wrong, who's going to kill me, was settled. That's the right word. It was settled in 1769, and 1791 was when it incorporated.
So the 250th is yet
Yes,
to come?
From, yes.
For the
Yes.
incorporated?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So hopefully, since they
Yes.
didn't celebrate it this year.
Well, it was 250 years since we were settled.
Oh.
Okay, since the first person cooked soup or something here. I don't know what defines settled.
They had the
They
one,
weren't natives.
Right, that's correct.
yeah, so that's an argument whether,
But, yeah, so it's a little technical, apologize for that, but that's what happened.
well, somebody did put the one
They
banner up.
did. They did. Well,
Yeah.
that had me asking the questions, frankly.
That was a rogue individual.
Right. And as someone has been, there was an article in the paper, as someone is postulating and thinking about is that my forebears, the Vikings, were up in Duck Trap around 1100.
So we should be celebrating the, what would that be?
The 900th anniversary or something.
We all have ancestors and
Okay.
history and heritage, it's all part of it.
Thank you, Ray, thank you.
Anything else?
I'm still on the uptake. We, on the Riverwalk, in part of each grant, we had money budgeted, but of course, the earlier sessions, phases are all closed up, but we'd always budgeted signage. But we ran into the issue of not being able to put signage up because we hadn't established a standard for signs.
Right,
Now that there's a standard for signs, is there?
for the parks. There's a model, right?
Well, we had a mock-up that we thought about using.
Right. Yeah, well, it should be I'm sorry, there should be a template for the general approach to signage for the parks.
That is what we are, actually, yeah, this is right there.
The universal symbols of what can happen at that
Right.
place.
That's correct. And that's what they should be bouncing up the design committee, just so they know what we're talking about.
Oh, that's the downtown design.
Well, downtown design is working on other signage.
So I
And so
mean,
would it look like that, Bill?
I doubt it, because the intent of showing where parking lots are is totally different than, I mean, I'm exaggerating, make a point, than where, what's available in this park for swimming, boating, lunching, whatever it might be.
So the corollary questions are two. One is, there's quite a bit of money in the signage budget, but I assume that that's.
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec.
Yeah, we've carried over. Each year, we've put $3,000 in and we didn't spend it, so we carried it over.
Because we probably didn't know what the standard was.
Well, we
So
kept-
you're gonna-
yes.
Right, exactly.
Working on it, yeah.
So we couldn't do that with the grants, but so who designs the Riverwalk signage? I guess is that something
I
you're
would
doing?
assume it would be thrown into this same.
I would, yeah, absolutely link the two together.
right, I mean, think about this, okay, as, instead of Churchill Point, this is Seabright Park, okay?
Or
No, I
Seabright Trail.
understand, but
Or
it's-
Seabright,
versus the Riverwalk,
Seabright
but it's
Park and
the
Trail or
versus the
whatever.
trail.
Yeah,
And you have a, you know, what can be done there, and, you know,
But you could easily do Town of Camden Riverwalk.
All right, so is that from you? Or would-
Yeah, I've got it on it, yeah.
Holly? Okay.
Yeah.
And then, if we come up with something, I guess we'll be in touch
Right.
and
I
talk
think
about
what
it.
would be handy to know is where you're thinking these signs should be, what we're naming that section.
yeah.
Maybe how long it is.
We spent a lot of
Something like
time on
that?
it, and one of the tricky things is that since it's these segments are being built, it's sort of a moving target. So
Right.
you don't want to spend a lot of money on the signs.
'Cause it could
But you
change.
want it to be informational.
Well-
And you want to guide people.
You
Then
have
maybe
two
not the
different-
length.
Two different types of signs. You have, this is the name of it, and this is where it is. And then you have the,
Which is
it's
this.
so long, it's
Right, which-
this level of whatever, and, you know, the information of what it is.
So do we bring that to Holly?
Give us a list.
You should look at the segments of the Riverwalk we have now, and there should be signage that says, this is the town of Camden Riverwalk.
And this is how it hooks together.
Because our list is for all the various
And
parks already.
specifically, it's sort of coming up because of that fence.
Yeah.
And we want to give a message
Yeah.
to the public that, hey, this is a fence, we know that. Here's the future, this is what it's going to look like. Hang on.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity to,
I mean, this,
you don't want it to be up there too long without putting something up there.
Right, but I mean, the whole idea here is that this is a very nice, neat setup for signs that can be used anywhere where there's Camden parking.
Roads,
And it shows that it belongs to the town of Camden. It's basically managed,
relatively
by
easy to be
the parks.
reproduced.
easy to be reproduced, and a quick signal as to what you can do there. Yeah.
The only other piece of that we thought about was putting the hours of the park on it.
That's again, the second type of sign, which is informational.
But I
The
think
one that's naming it, and
less
then.
signs.
Yeah, you don't want to
the
put too
more-
many
the-
signs up,
yeah.
that gets confusing.
Because we also have the non-smoking signs that we post.
Yeah.
The parks sunrise to sunset,
Yes.
if you just put that on there. On all- Otherwise, I would hope we wouldn't have, this one's 9 to 5, this
Well,
one's 8 to 6. you know.
That comes into the discussion with Randy that we had about the
Right.
folks that went to
Right.
Lake Beach and got,
It's true, that's true.
not arrested, but what did they get?
Accosted. No, they didn't, they were just questioned. They were
Because
questioned.
it's trespassing if you're there
A
after.
certain hour.
They got a warning, I hope.
Oh, yeah, they said, please, it's closed, please.
So maybe that's why the
Dogs
time
on the
isn't on
beach,
it,
that
because
sort
we
of
didn't
thing.
want.
If you did a sunrise to sunset, you kind of covered all the bases.
Well, the other thing you can do is if you have that sign, then you can always make a little small bar one that goes underneath it.
Yeah.
That just says the time, and that way if the hours change for some
That's-
reason.
That's your call.
It's simple to do.
That's your call.
Right,
Yeah, you don't have to.
Good.
put it
Black and
says-
white hours.
right. That's a good point.
Okay, it's in the
fine.
town
Yeah.
ordinance.
It is, just people
Okay.
don't know it.
Right. Well, I think we're all set.
Oh, one other quick question.
Sure.
I was talking to Pat, Michael and Pat
Yeah.
from the Heritage, and Pat said she would be willing at some point to come to the meeting to talk about the Heritage Committee's perspective on Curtis Island and what's going on, to get a little more information to our committee about what their plans are there.
I don't
Does
think-
anybody have any interest in that?
Technically, Curtis Island right now is not under our
Oh,
purview.
it isn't? Oh, I
No,
thought it was. We discussed
No.
it at a meeting.
No,
I believe it is.
we have talked about it, but it's really not
It's not a
something that we
town
can make
park?
any decisions. It is a town park,
Mm-hmm.
but the town manager decided that it would be better if the harbor committee, instead of this committee,
I
was,
believe that's my understanding.
Okay.
right.
Because I know we discussed it
So-
at some meetings.
Right.
Pretty new that it
Yeah.
moved to the harbor.
Oh,
Did last year.
That's
Last year,
very
it moved
new.
to the harbor committee, and,
It's very new.
Okay,
Yeah.
didn't know that.
all right.
All right.
Thank
Okay,
you.
fine. Good, thank you, everybody.
To adjourn?
You don't need one. You don't have a quorum.
Okay.